Welcome to the Guildxyz podcast, where you get insights from the world's best community builders on how they use technology to build guilds of the future. I'm your host, Gary Sheng, and I cannot wait for you to learn at least one more tool or technique for how to organize and scale your amazing community. Today's guest is my good friend, Darin Carter, who has been helping lead policy at the one and only Coinbase. They have racked up so many policy wins over the past 2 years, and it has been just so inspiring to see her from afar and up close, catching up with Darin on the different initiatives that they're doing to mobilize millions of people around the country who care about crypto, don't want it to go away, don't want the US to make terrible policies that shoot ourselves in the foot. Darin is a great community organizer. There's so much to learn from him. So I wanted to say welcome, Darin, to the Guildxyz podcast.
Darin, it is so good to see you, my friend. You know, we have this podcast for community builders, interviewing master community builders. And, you know, I've just been so fascinated by you and your adventure over the past few years building a community focused on defending crypto in America. So why don't you just tell us a bit about yourself and your journey, and we'll go from there.
That sounds great, Gary. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited about this. Obviously, we've known each other for some years now, but for the audience, I'm Darin Carter. I've been at Coinbase for 5 years, currently working on our U.S. policy team, and excited about our support of the Stand With Crypto movement. And as you were alluding to, defending America here in the United States, really just making sure that we create an environment for innovation and for entrepreneurs to flourish, but also just like raising the voice of everyday advocates. And I think that's been the most fulfilling part of this journey. Who knew that crypto was going to be the one topic that actually brings a lot of people into the realm of political awareness and understanding how to engage with their policymaker? And myself, I actually didn't even have a formal background in public policy. So it's actually been a beautiful journey to also learn how we can engage better with Congress, because there are so many other issues outside of this that matter a lot. But today I'm repping the pin. This is an OG pin, so I'm excited about this, but I'm sure we'll talk more about the Stand With Crypto movement.
So good to have you here. And I would love to hear how Coinbase has anything to do with policy.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we intentionally chose to be here in the United States. And as a company who is in the United States, we want to adhere to all of the regulations that are relevant. Coinbase is regulated by a number of different entities. Obviously, we have New York BitLicense, so we work, with NYDFS. Internationally as well, there are a number of regulations that we are in compliance with, and we want to continue to advance this conversation about regulatory clarity for all forms of tokenized assets. And I think what we've discovered is that the status quo currently isn't working. Everyone's very familiar with the regulatory friction that we face here in the United States, and as a result, we're losing a number of builders year over year to other countries. And we're really just stifling a lot of the innovation that can potentially grow here. So our goal is to help the industry get it right. Originally, when Coinbase had launched the Shield campaign, it grew from Crypto 435, as in we want people in all 435 congressional districts to essentially like raise their voice and say, hey, like we want better regulation here in the United States. And it caught fire. And then now Stand With Crypto is its own independent entity. But Coinbase as a company still really cares about getting crypto policy right. So that's the intersection here. Obviously, we're a very mission-first company, but this is directly in line with the mission of getting regulations right so we can continue on this journey.
Why did Coinbase step in? There's at least some amount of big crypto firms in the U.S., but as you said, a lot of them are choosing not to incorporate in the U.S. or, even have customers in the U.S. even.
Yeah.
Because of the regular.
And as I'm jumping in, is like, again, there are a lot of companies who can make the decision that it's too hard to build here in the United States and there's too much regulatory friction and that they just want to do business elsewhere. And I do want to applaud the company and Brian and his leadership here for saying that we do want to be based here in the United States. Although it is hard, we do want to hold ourselves to the highest standard, especially as a public company here in the U.S. And I think that that's an important distinction. And a lot of the reason why Coinbase decided to step into this, I'll call it this gap, this opportunity, and really lead with extreme ownership and say, this is not a problem that we want. We have done our absolute best to engage, as have a number of other large firms, some here in the US, some internationally, but regardless of where they're based, like we've been trying to have a more coherent conversation with our regulatory bodies. And unfortunately, we need to step it up and we need to call on Congress to act. So, as an extreme owner, we said we need to take action on this problem, because if not, it doesn't only hurt just Coinbase. It hurts every person in the United States who wants to build using tokenized assets. And that's kind of how it started. And obviously the movement continues.
I love it. I love the idea of extreme ownership that Coinbase is taking. I mean, in retrospect, it's obvious that Coinbase is a great fit for leading the charge, kickstarting it, addressing the cold start problem with building a pretty grassroots movement focused on protecting crypto in the US. I want to hear how you and your team thought about kickstarting this movement. I see on the Stand with Crypto website that there's over 1 million people that have signed up to participate in one way or another. 1,166,000 people. How do you feel about that? How did you
We're excited.
go about?
1 million is a huge milestone. And I think to contextualize it, this would take other organizations years or decades to grow an advocacy base this large with a presence in all 50 states, with people at the grass tops level, maybe they're founders, but also just like everyday people who interact with crypto or own a digital asset in any form and are excited about the congressional momentum that we're seeing, as in the Fit 21 vote, but just like pushing towards better policies that are still addressing consumer protections, but also give builders the regulatory clarity. And also for context, the friction that we see is almost uniquely here in the United States. Other regulatory regimes, let's say it's the UK or Singapore, have taken a proactive approach and they're embracing this. And it's really just like a uniquely American issue that we're facing. I think we'll get through it. Obviously, like the tides have been changing, but I don't think that we would be where we're at had it not been for the action of literally those millions of advocates and the people across each state who have done the simple things of just engaging with the political process, educating policymakers, highlighting use cases, and that's a community building effort. So that's why I'm excited to talk more about it.
Totally. Speaking of community building, I think one of the coolest things that you've done is create this kind of coalition of, reputable crypto blockchain-based entrepreneurs. And you've hosted many events that connect these builders with policymakers. Can you talk more about that strategy and how you feel like it's going? How many events have you done?
Yeah,
So far.
I want to say we've done over a dozen in-person events all across the nation. Our most recent event was in Arizona, where we had 240 people, actually more than 240 people, show up in person at Venture Cafe, which is like a traditional innovation hub in the center of Phoenix. We partnered with a number of grassroots partners like the Arizona Tech Council. So our goal with these is to humanize the industry, lead with awareness and education, and just provide that forum for just a more productive conversation about all of this. So we typically invite a policymaker. In this case, Senator Mesnard was lucky enough to give his time. And then we had a number of other phenomenal speakers and always a local innovator as well. And the innovator, Thor, was able to explain to the audience what his company does and why the current regulatory regime does not work for him. And just hearing that firsthand from a founder who's from the area is a really powerful message, but also having a policymaker, and we had other regulators that were there to listen to this and also like provide their feedback, is just a more productive way to do this. And I think the industry has suffered a lot from just like, I'll call it maybe a lack of awareness, but really the fact that you didn't have a face to the movement. And what we're doing now is that we're humanizing this. We're showing the people of crypto. They're telling their story. They're showing why they're building on blockchain, and their use cases are speaking for themselves. And I think that it helps move the needle for policymakers, because when they don't understand something, it's really easy for them to be susceptible to any headline, good, bad, indifferent. And what we want to do is to help provide more touch points and higher fidelity touch points for anyone in the ecosystem to just get to know this technology.
I love it. You've done a great job. I was, privileged to participate in one of your events, one that you hosted in DC. I thought it was just really professionally produced, which, speaking of humanizations and related to that, professionalization, showing that it's not just a sloppy industry, but one that deserves to be taken seriously. I think Coinbase, Stand With Crypto, has done a really amazing job. So really, real hats off to you and your team.
Thank you. And honestly, having you on that panel was a huge pleasure. And for your audience, I'll have to get you the footage for this so they can actually see you shine on stage. But thank you for participating in that. The Update the System Summit was a tremendous half-day summit that we held in DC for the local audience, but also specifically for policymakers. We had Senator Lummis and Representative McHenry present as well for panel discussions and opening remarks. And then a number of big names and also Grassroots founders were able to take the stage and talk about why they're building on blockchain, the things that we need to see, and just a more productive participation with Congress, which I think, thankfully, again, all of these efforts are moving the needle, and you're starting to see real policy results.
What is the role of technology in movement building? I mean, number one, just to maybe tee up this question a little bit more, I think this website is really beautiful. I think the little expanding little ribbons where it's email your congressperson, join Stand With Crypto, ask the end and include crypto questions in the presidential debate. I feel like there's been a lot of thoughtfulness around, it doesn't have to be crypto tech that's built for this, right? But it's just very practically useful tech. Do you want to talk about how you've thought about, how you and your team have thought about, building useful tools for movement building?
Absolutely. A lot of that effort has just evolved over time because you have to choose a starting point, and then you have to go big. You have to be really audacious about that. And you can evaluate, how is the audience receiving this movement? Wow, it looks like there are millions of people who are actually signing up for this. This is actually great to see that people do want to participate. How do we bring them deeper down the funnel? How do we help them engage more? On one prong, the technology is completely neutral and the movement is nonpartisan and bipartisan, which is great to see, right? It's just purely a technology that people are excited about and that people are just using for various different things, which is why founders have been so phenomenal. And obviously you have your everyday advocates who are raising their voice because they're users, their constituents, they really just care about this in general. And then on the political policy side, it's interesting to build tools for advocacy. And I know you have a long history in civics and probably this is second nature to you, but for a lot of our audience who see themselves more as pure technologists or on the technology side, they're going on this learning journey of, how do I actually engage with Congress on issues that I care about? This particular issue is crypto. There may be other issues that you're truly passionate about, and you can learn how effective it is to call your local policymaker, or even if you have the privilege of going to DC and setting up a meeting and just having a very frank conversation with them, obviously come very prepared with data and talking points and examples, and you want to be on point for those ones. But people need to exercise their opportunity to engage with their policymakers in a productive, constructive fashion. And we've hopefully been building the right tools to do that. And we're always open to audience feedback on other tools that we can build. But I do want to say that these have been highly impactful. And again, a large reason why we're seeing so much momentum now. If you would ask me 2 years ago, is crypto going to be an issue that presidents care about? I'd have been we have a long shot, but you're saying there's a chance. And now, not only is there a chance, it's very real, the opportunity is here. And I think the advocates are excited because they have a real opportunity to make a tangible impact. And in the world of policy, that might not come around all that often.
I love it. I mean, I could not agree more that 2 years ago, it was very unclear whether anything could be done to save crypto in the United States. And super hats off to you guys and really the million people that have raised their hands to contribute in big and small ways. I want to ask a question about you. So you were tapped to help lead policy for Coinbase. You said you didn't have policy experience. It seems like, your team appreciates what you've been doing. Any advice for people just on being a leader in tech and policy?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you kind of gave that context as well, because although I didn't have a formal training in that was almost actually my superpower. There's a number of other skills and a number just a different knowledge set, a different domain that I came with. My background before even coming to Coinbase was always in information security. So I was at Salesforce and EY for a while, which really helped me just sharpen my skills as a professional and as someone who has a particular domain expertise. Coming to Coinbase, I was lucky enough to have 3 different jobs, the joys of a startup. And then joining the US policy team, I was actually able to just fill a different role for the team. So, if you're building out a roster for an NBA team, you want Shaq and Kobe, right? I know exactly what I brought to the team, and it didn't have to be the traditional skill set that they have. So if you are someone who in your career is looking to make this transition, I would say skill set and mindset matter. I would say honestly, just my mindset has carried me much further than just my skill set. There's a lot of things that you can learn just through experience, and just through, it's through commitment.
What's your mindset, Darin?
You gotta be fully invested. You really have to go 200% at this. You do have to be an optimist, right? And I think that's what the crypto community does great, for good and for bad. You have to be, I just see it as scrappy. I don't know how else to describe it. I have a bunch of basketball terms floating in my head on how you dive after loose balls, right? You have to play through contact for sure. But yeah, I think it just sums up in this be really scrappy, be committed, be open to learning, because every single day in this new opportunity is I learned something new. And then also ask for feedback and be open to coaching, and don't try to do this all alone. I think the best part about this opportunity has been the fact that I've been able to learn through osmosis from some of the best people in the industry. And that's also another really fulfilling part of the job, the learning that happens along with all of the execution and the growth of the movement and so on and so forth.
Speaking of learning, what is one thing that you or your team tried that didn't work out, and why? And upon reflection, upon postmortem, what did you realize was the reason it didn't work?
Same thing in basketball. Shooters keep shooting. People don't necessarily remember all the misses, and these are things that we reflect on as well. I'll say one, I'll call it a miss, but obviously it's always a learning opportunity. Very early on with this movement, when it was Crypto 435, we tried this on-chain attestation, and it was truly an experiment to see if we can get people to sign a crypto, essentially bill of rights, or I attest to move the needle forward on regulatory clarity. And it was a win in the sense that we were able to get tens of thousands of signatures. So we wanted to be crypto first, which is why we allowed people to sign with their wallet. It was fully on chain via Snapchat. But it was a miss in the sense that we realized that we need to make this just as easy for people who aren't on chain yet, or people who aren't fully technically capable.
Yeah, who aren't
that far.
DAO voters.
Exactly. For the people who aren't DAO voters, right? You are still able to participate in this movement with the same frictionless experience that, the on-chain degens and regens can participate in. So we had to essentially make the movement easier. We had to reduce friction. And a lot of the tools that we built over the next, let's say, year after that were informed by different decisions like that.
Oof. That's such good advice. Reduce friction. Make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, crypto, friction.
Good advice.
Easy.
Crypto in general. Figure out how to reduce the number of steps, make it a lot easier. We have a long way to go as an industry for just like general applications, but I love it. I love that was there wasn't an ego around, oh, we must have a bunch of signing transactions, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That's the authentic. It's like the mission is not to just get a bunch of people to try a bunch of crypto tools. It's to defend the policy.
Yeah,
matters.
exactly. And again, that's where I feel like the industry can also benefit from being more self-aware. We really want the world to be on chain. You have to meet people where they're at. These tools are for people.
Yeah, totally. What have you learned about interacting with powerful people, including probably a lot that have interesting egos?
Yeah, well, that's the fun part about policy and politics. I think the benefit that I have is because I don't have like the public policy and political background, I walk in blissfully optimistic and ignorant. Yes, I do interact with these egos and these power people, but I have noticed and learned that everyone is human. And thankfully, a lot of these people are actually starting from square one on crypto. And you can actually have a really impactful conversation by just talking to them in plain English about this industry, why you're excited, and so on and so forth. So everyone is human. That's probably not a new learning here, but it's cool to see that reinforced when I'm in these circles. And I feel like I'm naturally charismatic, so I can have a really good conversation with a lot of people. And then the people that have egos or, I'm just not vibing with, that's fine, right? Like, I kind of brush that off. I am committed to the broader movement. A lot of the advocates and especially the founders have really stepped up. So I do want to give like a shout out to them. And we're always on the same wavelength. So there's never really been any friction there, because you really do have to be a courageous person to make an intentional decision of, I want to use this new technology to provide impact for Americans here, and I want to be a builder here in the United States. And I think that there's a common thread that unites all of these builders and really all these advocates around that. Obviously, policymakers, they care about literally 100 other things, and crypto is likely towards the tail end of that. It's rising, but likely to the tail end of that. So you also have to be very self-aware that this isn't the number one issue for them, but it might relate to their number one issue: healthcare, housing, whatever it may be.
Darin, who is someone that you look up to in movement building, community building, or maybe even leadership in general, and why?
That is a great question. Who are the leaders that I really look up to? I will say that certain things have had a resounding impact on my life and my career, and also have impacted my mentality. So, former Congressman John Lewis, the late great John Lewis, is someone who had a profound impact on my career and like my resolve in this industry. And one of his phrases was just keep the faith, keep the faith. And also good trouble. And I think the combination of good trouble and keep the faith have been core tenets that have allowed me to survive a bunch of really challenging situations throughout my entire career. So I do want to give a shout out to Congressman John Lewis, who also happens to be my second cousin. So gotta throw that out there.
Really? Look at that.
Yes.
Cool. Great answer. Shout out to, and rest in power, John Lewis. I love it.
Yes.
What is one thing that you've learned from someone on your team?
I'm lucky to work with some of the best people I feel like in the industry. Obviously, that's a talking point that everyone likes to say, but we've been asked to do so many challenging things, and we've stepped up to the plate where, like, through this journey, you not only learn a lot, but I think everyone who's been participating in this earns a lot of respect for doing the hard things and being patient with this process as well. It's not as simple as just build something. So I will give obviously a nod to Chief Policy Officer Faryar, and then the head of U.S. policy, Kara. They've been phenomenal leaders throughout this entire movement. They have an approach of just like figuring certain things out and not being afraid of the hard things. And also they have just like a great intuition about how we should continue to move and evolve. So like, I trust them a lot. I've learned a lot from them, and they make really difficult things come to fruition. So, I think they're great people to learn from. And then obviously like one of the most rewarding parts of the job is learning from other founders who have the time of day to actually like dive deep on all the crypto stuff. Because I found in this new position, a lot of times I'm working the policy side, and I'm like that SpongeBob and Patrick meme where they're like, I'm Squidward and I'm just like watching the on-chain community and like the refi community and conferences going on. And I'm like, man, I'm excited for y'all. As soon as this challenge is over, like I want to be back in that ecosystem. But it is really fun. It is fun. And again, I'm learning a lot. So it's good to be at the intersection of both crypto and policy.
It's so funny. I was going to ask you, I'm not saying you need to leave anytime soon, but let's say you did leave your role at Coinbase and maybe left Coinbase. What is one thing that you would really love to explore in the next part of your career?
So glad you asked that question, because there's so many things I want to explore. Again, I feel like the Squidward meme at times. I will obviously give you a nod because like the community that you've been building in real life has been amazing with Edge City, and I think I'm most drawn to an impact community or like a regenerative economics community. Those are things that I just want to explore. Maybe I explore them, I realize I have another, passion adjacent to that, but I think that would be an amazing next step. And I think Coinbase has shown me that you can actually do a lot internally as well. I alluded to the fact that I've had 3 different jobs. So I've been on the security team, I've been on the giving team, and I've been on the policy team. Jesse obviously has his own journey that attests to the fact that this company is also about internal innovation. So I'm not necessarily as bounded to where, but like what new domain is probably what keeps me up at night.
And you're talking about Jesse from Base?
Yeah, Jesse from Base. I figured the crypto community is on a first name basis with Jesse. So
first name Jasis. What are your thoughts on Base? What an interesting experiment so far over the past couple of years.
Yeah. No, I think
is it just like it's like a year and a half? I don't even know. It just feels like so recent.
Coinbase
so
times wide. Yeah, I obviously huge kudos to the Base team. If there's anyone from Base watching, great job, guys. Obviously we feel like we're just getting started here, but you start to see like these really powerful like network effects. More builders are coming to the ecosystem. We're doing more unique things as well. On-chain summer is happening right now, and we're just like having like this amazing portfolio of collaborations. And then obviously when you see we're present at conferences, it's not just about like Coinbase, the exchange. It's actually about the builder community and all the other opportunities that we can now help facilitate for the crypto ecosystem. So I think that's probably the more exciting part. It's on-chain, it's innovative, but it's expanding outside of our first blockbuster product of, exchange. And now we have so many amazing use cases, builders who are kind of committed to the ecosystem. And I think it obviously is more in line with the ethos of community building. That's truly what we're doing here.
Amazing. I want to ask if there's any final advice that you have for community builders as someone that has really dove deep over the past few years in this field.
Yeah, and I'll also flip it to you and ask for some advice as one of the best community builders that I know.
Thank you.
One of the most like voracious networkers, like connectors that I've seen. So I want to give a shout out to you. Obviously, my advice is just like stay open-minded and continue to just build authentic connections and just keep people on your radar and follow up, right? You never know when the right opportunity is going to come, but also like, again, be a good teammate. When there's something that crosses your radar that you can't take advantage of immediately, just know that like this could be a great time for an assist. Throw the lob, right? So I think that advice will help you continue to build a great community because, next time when you're running down the court, Gary, you're throwing me a lob. So you know how I like it. Just near the rim.
Alley-oop, baby. 6-foot vertical. What is a example of an assist that you were part of in the last year?
Well, again, I do have the fortunate opportunity to put together the Update the System Summit, and I get to follow up with founders who have been really impressive or like building a use case that I feel like needs a main stage. And for a lot of these grassroots founders, unfortunately, they don't have the big platform that Big Blue has, and they might be building something that's extremely impactful, and they really just need to have the opportunity to get their message out there. So, I'm always looking to connect with more founders. If there's founders in your network, please, we would love to connect and talk, especially if you have some really interesting use cases.
Totally. I guess to answer your question about advice, well, I kind of want to just build on what you said, where, especially for someone that has a lot of interests, like I do and like Darin does, you just never know when there's someone in your network that could be a potential co-founder, a potential employer, a potential employee, a potential partner, right, of an organization that you're a part of. So be a sociable person, stick to your word. If you promise to do something, do it. And if for whatever reason something comes up where you can't, explain it as soon as possible. Just be a reliable, trustworthy person that has a good reputation, where if a kind of golden opportunity emerges to build something new that is even more aligned with what you're doing right now, that personal community that you've built around you is exactly why that golden opportunity emerged. And I think that's something that you do really well. It's something that I try to do well. Like we catch up every few months, like minimum, just to keep
just check in
touch and to see how we can be helpful to each other. And this is an example where this interview itself is just like, hey, like it's probably marginally helpful for you, definitely helpful for me, and very helpful for the audience, though, right? And
I love. I just love people like who are willing to ask for help while they're building something, because I fully believe in what you're building here. So I'm excited to, share my advice, share some time. You call me in between moves, so was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, on my way to New York City. Have a crazy travel schedule this week, so apologies for the background here, but still wanted to hop on a quick podcast and share some knowledge for the audience.
Heck yeah. Well, Darin, really appreciate you making the time in between your crazy travel schedule. I know you're just running around the country defending this industry for all of us. So keep up the fight. Keep up the good trouble.
Thank you, Gary. Really appreciate this. Shields up, good trouble, and looking forward to more conversations.
Peace.
Peace.
I want to end with a few notes. Number one, if you want to collect this episode, you can do so on pods.media/guild. The exact link is in the description. Minting this episode enables you to join our audience community on Telegram and shape the future of this podcast. And of course, we have to give a shout out to the host of this podcast, Guild, the ultimate toolkit for on-chain communities. Create your guild at guild.xyz. Until the next episode of The Gilded Age, peace.